Hey, what's good, folks? You know who it is. Here's your boy Podcasting with Jay, and I'm here with another video today. Why is it that women can't find true love? That's the question that we're going to answer today. And this comes from a podcast that I saw called Diary of a CEO, and it has a special guest on there, Scott Galloway. And he's talking to Mr. Galloway about how a lot of successful women are saying that it's really difficult to find true love out there. And see, this is the thing. I'm not talking about just sisters. There are women of all nationalities going through the same stuff. So let's get to the podcast, and we're going to go ahead and let it do what it do. Fair use. Fair use.
Knock-on effects for women, and I think the data is also suggesting that the crisis amongst men is causing, in many situations, a crisis for women as well, because we both, men and women exist in an ecosystem that needs to be somewhat balanced. So I'd like to talk about the impact this is having on women. One of the things I found interesting, it's actually because of a young woman came up to me in a bookshop. I was just there looking for my own book, as you do, just because it just come out. And she said something to me that a lot of women that have approached me or DM'd me have said quite frequently, which is she's over the age of 30 now. She's committed much of her life to her career. She's single. She's tried dating apps and she doesn't enjoy it. And part of me started to think about the fact she might be caught in a sort of generational gap where they used to meet in person, but now the generation below her meet online. And she concluded what she was saying to me with the fact that she believes, or she's starting to believe, that maybe there's something wrong with her.
Now, before Mr. Galloway talks, I think when women get a certain age, when they get in their 30s and their 40s, especially in my age bracket, women were so used to men approaching them and men doing it the old-fashioned way. And now in today's society, everybody is so enamored with social media, dating apps, and all these things. And now it's becoming more of a chore. I remember back in the days when you go try to find a date or try to find somebody, it wasn't really considered a chore. It was more considered, I want to go ahead and find the love of my life, settle down, get married, have a couple of kids. It is what it is. Now that we're getting older, dating has become more of a chore, not only just for men, but for women as well. Let's continue.
Because she's over the age of 30, she's single, she can't find a partner. She told me she's never had a boyfriend. She's killing it in her career. And she was in that bookshop looking for advice from a book. And I feel compelled, because I know she listens to this podcast, to ask as many people as I can the question to find an answer for her, because there's someone very close to me in my life who I literally text when I left the bookshop, and I said, I've just met you in the bookshop. Every sentence that woman said to me in the bookshop is the exact word for word, even like I've tried going to the gym and that's not working, is the same as a close friend in my life, one of my best friends, has said to me as well. And there's not just one in my personal life, there's 3 or 4.
Well, we all know women.
Well, let's talk about the woman that he met in the bookstore. She never had a boyfriend. She's 30 years old. She's killing it in her career. I think one of the issues that she's having is that she never really had that experience of having a boyfriend. And sometimes when you haven't had that experience of being in a relationship, that can hinder you because you're so focused on your career. I guarantee you her parents probably told her, you need to get your education, focus on your career, don't worry about love. She did all that. And it's like, what can I do now? Now you're going to a book. A book will give you answers, but real life experience is the best way to find the answers. Let's continue.
I'm sure this happens to you all the time. Really interesting, high character, successful, attractive women, usually in their 30s, sometimes in their 40s, who will say, I can't find anyone to date. And it's not that they can't find anyone to date. It's that they can't find anyone they want to date.
There it is. He hit it on the head. They can't find nobody they want to date. There's a difference between finding somebody to date and not finding somebody that you want to date. You know what I'm saying? a lot of women, what happens is once you get to a certain point in your life, as far as your career is concerned, you're killing it. You got your own house, you got your own car, you got everything you need, got everything you want. But that need is out there. To find that man is that need that you don't have. There are plenty of men out there. There are plenty of guys out there that you can date that will make you happy. But it's the man that you want. That's the problem. You're not getting the man that you need. Let's continue.
And there's some dynamics here. The first is...
Can I just interject to validate your point there? She also said to me, I'm not willing to drop my standards.
Well, and it's like Warren Buffett said, the key to a healthy marriage is low expectations. What's happening is, and I think his name's Chris Williams. He kind of reminds me of you. He's this handsome young podcaster who's blowing by all us old guys. Do you know Chris?
Yeah, I know Chris.
Anyways, he does a fantastic job, and I've learned a lot from him. But he calls it the high heels effect. And that is, every year for the last 50 years, women have become better educated and they're making more money. In urban centers, they've now, under the age of 30, blown by. They're now making more money. More single women in the US own houses than single men. They're getting taller every year. And the reason he uses height is that 50% of women say they won't date a guy shorter than them. It's probably more like 80%. And even if they're not cognizant of it, just anthropologically, subconsciously, they're just usually not attracted to men shorter than them because they have something telling them that this individual is less likely to be able to physically protect you.
See, and what he said is 100% correct, because women, and I've been on panels, I've been in Clubhouse, I've been in these little places where women subconsciously say they don't want to date a man that's shorter than them. If a woman is 5'2", she won't date a man that's 5'5". She won't date a man that's 5'7". Even though that man is 5 inches taller than her, she won't date a man that's 5'7", 5'8". A woman who's 5'8" won't date a man that's 5'6", because subconsciously, like you said, it's ingrained in their head that they don't want to date a man that's shorter. Also, from a financial standpoint, they don't want to date a man who doesn't make more than them. It's subconsciously put in their head. And in the last, like you said, the last 50 years, women have came a long way. Now they got everything they want, but the need is still out there. Let's continue.
So you're just at a disadvantage from a height standpoint. Now, metaphorically, women are getting taller every year and men are getting shorter, right? Men mate socioeconomically horizontally and down, women horizontally and up. But when the pool of men who are socioeconomically senior to women, it just means that the quote unquote pool of viable mates for women is going down every year. And women have been told they can have it all. And what I found is you can't have it all. Or let me put it this way, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at once. And that to focus on their careers, which, by the way, I think is a good thing. I think economic viability is just super important for everyone, including women. But the reality is, as they have gotten taller, men have gotten shorter, so there's just less pairing. Society has a tendency to evaluate a woman's success through the lens of her romantic success, not as much for men. People look at you and think, and I don't know your relationship status, but people look at you like, guy who's killing it. He's killing it, and he's single. Oh my God, it's good to be Stephen Bartlett. A woman in her 30s who's killing it professional as alone. It's like super successful, but your single status is a feature. For women, it's seen as a bug.
Yeah. And you know, people don't understand that when you focused on your career, you focused on everything, you basically, I'm not gonna say you took yourself out of the dating market, but you kind of, as a woman, women kind of shorten their pool. Now, a man that's in his 30s and single is different from a woman who's in their 30s and single. And we can blame that sort of on the patriarchy. We can blame that on society. A woman who's in her 30s and single is looked at as a downplay, while a man that's single in his 30s is looked like an upplay. But the issue is that a woman can get a viable mate quicker than a man. You can get a man quicker than a man can get a woman. But the problem is that you're only looking for a particular man. And when you're looking for a particular man, the issue becomes, where can I find this man? There's only 2 out of 100 men that fit these categories. And you have 40 or 50 other women competing for those 2 men. And when the pool of men is real small, then that's when it's going to make it tougher on you as far as a single woman. You can take all these girl trips and do all these things with your girlfriends, but as you get older, you're going to realize you're going to want to go out on vacations with that man. But hey, I don't want to flap my gums. Let's continue.
And you both might be just as lonely, but or you might be engaging in, and I'm projecting here, I have no idea what your situation is here, but there's this dynamic where the men who are in the top 10% can engage in Porsche Polygamy. And that is women with online dating now believe, there's something wrong with this, that, and this is going to get me in trouble, but let's rate everybody. Most people will acknowledge that some people are more attractive than others, and they find certain people less and more attractive. A woman of average attractiveness can have a relationship. And when I say relationship, that's code for sex with someone who's in the top 10%.
Yeah.
But that individual is probably not going to establish a long-term relationship. And because of the lack of friction and connection and meeting people via text message or online dating, the top 10% of men are getting 80+ % of the opportunities for short-term relationships or sex. So they can engage in what's called Porsche Polygamy, and that there's not a lot of motivation for them to establish long-term relationships, which leads to bad behavior and a lack of household formation. So the guys that most women want and believe that they should be in a relationship with are the least likely to establish a long-term relationship.
Stop. Yep. It is. The men that you want, those are the ones who don't pursue a relationship, because it's like when you go to the store and you can get anything out of the store, you can get anything you want. If you got all the money, you got all the success as a man, if you're the top 10% man, why would that man settle down with a woman, any woman? If I can have that woman across the street, that woman down the street, that woman around the corner, that woman in another city, why would I settle down? And see, the problem is most women want those men because those men are successful. Those men are attractive. Those men are appealing. Those are the bad boys. Those are the ones that make their box wet. That's the issue. And when over 80% of those women want the top 10% men, they're competing for that man, but they don't even know it. When you go on, so when these women go on dating apps and they swipe left 80% of the time, and they swipe right 20% of the time or 10% of the time, you know how many other women swipe right to that individual male? Let's continue.
And then the bottom 90 either have little or absolutely no interest from women. So I want to be clear, no woman is responsible for servicing a man. But what I think has happened is this dynamic where, because online has given everyone access to everyone, the majority of women are all interested in the same group. And this group is now much less likely to engage in a long-term relationship. And the result is just there's a disproportionate number of men and women who, quite frankly, are just lonely. But men have a tendency, when they don't have a romantic relationship, to not only not have that romantic relationship, but then they have fewer friends. They go out less. They're less professionally successful. You know, if I didn't have a mate who told me we need to save for a house, I'm not sure I wouldn't have been smoking pot and drinking every night. You know, she was like, if you want to continue to have a relationship and have sex with me, you've got to get your shit together.
Yeah. And he's 100% correct, because the thing about men is, I always tell guys, you got to have a purpose. You got to have a purpose. And a lot of times, a woman, the right woman, will give that man purpose. Like he said, if You didn't tell me we need to save for a house, or we need to grind and we need to hustle to get this house or get these cars or pay for our kids' education. A man wouldn't do it. And a lot of times when a man is not in a relationship or he doesn't interact with the opposite sex as much, you know what he does? He doesn't have a lot of friends. He doesn't hang out a lot. He's in his house playing video games. He's in his house doing all the different shit that men do who are lonely. They're not out and about. And when I'm out and about, you can tell who's the baller, who's the guy, who's the main guy. See, women, they'll have friends regardless. They'll have female friends regardless. They'll go out regardless. Because women are the hunted. Men are the hunters. But hey, let's continue.
Young men need that. They need the guardrail of a romantic interest, the cocktail or the peanut butter and chocolate of a household where one person is more risk aggressive. That's really important. And pushing the boundaries of what can be done. And then another person who's more practical. And that oftentimes goes into gender roles. Not always, and sometimes it's flipped. But that's a powerful combination. 1 + 1 really does equal 3. And across every species, you see that the majority of really wonderful things, including offspring, but other things in terms of building a society, are a mix of different attributes. And so we have just fewer and fewer of that peanut butter and chocolate in households. There are now more people not only living alone, but living with their parents than ever before, because they're not establishing these relationships. So it's absolutely bad for women, but typically women still are economically successful, still find places to put that love. And quite frankly, don't start killing themselves or killing others. So it's not that it's any less bad, but the knock-on effects tend to be less bad for society.
Yeah, he's right, because when a woman is in a relationship, she'll find other things to keep herself okay. Like she has a circle of friends, or, some women, there are a lot of single mothers, so they tend to take care of their kids. They tend to focus more on their careers. But a lot of guys who don't have those different things, it's more difficult for them because, this is why the self-deletion rate among men is like 80% to only 20% for women, because men need a purpose. And when men don't have a purpose, this is what tends to happen.
And I went through the research from the Pew research, but also from the sort of Centers of Disease Control, just to clarify some of these numbers for women as well. And they cement everything you've said. Only 13% of women over 30 were married in 1970. That number has now risen to almost half. The divorce rate for women over 30 has doubled in the past 50 years. In 1970, only 10% of women over 30 were childless. Today, that number has risen to almost 30%. In 1970, only 28% of women over 30 were earning more than their husbands. Today, that number has risen to almost 50%. And in 1970, only 12% of women over 30 were living alone. Today, that number has risen to 35%. And on the point of loneliness, I was looking at how many men versus how many women have a best friend. And it's multiples more. So multiple more women still have relationships regardless of this state of affairs, because they're better at, as you say, forming social connections in non-romantic relationships with other women than men are. So it's a pretty bleak picture. And maybe most importantly of all, there's a clear direction of travel here. Mm-hmm. And if you extrapolate out that direction of travel, we don't get to a good place. Population decline you spoke of, and how that lopsides society, depression, mental health, suicide.
If you were to try and have one answer that would address not all of it, but really take a dent out of obesity, addiction, deaths of despair, male abandonment, divorce, depression. If we raised, and I don't know the numbers here, but if we raised in the United States the minimum wage, if we tripled the minimum wage, I think you would go a long way to solving a lot of those problems. I think.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Honestly, what he just said, tripling the minimum wage, making everything more affordable in the United States, you would go a long way because people would be able to get out, people would be happier, women wouldn't have this whole thing of he needs to make this certain amount of money because he will make that certain amount of money. You know what I'm saying? He will be able to, you know, fit those qualifications. Now, the main reason why a lot of women can't find relationships is because they can't, or they think that they can't find a suitable mate. They can't find a suitable mate. Most women will tell themselves, I need a man to make this, I need a man to do this. But it's not a need, it's a want. I always tell women all the time, God may send you the right man. He may not be in the perfect package, but he may send you the right man. You may just look past him and then you walk past your blessings. Just like a man may walk past his blessings. But the key is, I think communication is really important. All this back and forth, men and women crap needs to stop. And we need to have more dialogue and more conversations about what can we do. And fellas, get on your purpose. Get on your purpose. Make sure that you are on your purpose, because when you're on your purpose, you have things to do, and chasing tail is not the first thing you're doing. Getting on your purpose is the first thing you're doing. And after a while, the women will see you doing that, see you working out, see you grinding, see you pushing, and then they'll want to be a part of the equation. Women want relationships. The problem is there aren't enough available men, or men who fit their standards for them to get in a relationship. That's the main issue. But it's your boy Podcasting with Jay, here with another video. If you like the video, hit that like button. Also hit the subscribe button. Let me know what you think in the comments. And what's in today's question? Why aren't today's modern women in relationships? Hey, that's the question. Until next time, peace.